Welcome to The Impossible, where we empower others to face the impossible, inspire them to be impossible, and motivate them to do the impossible. I'm Matt, and I'm back, as always, with my brother, Austin Douglas. How you doing tonight, man?
Fantastic. Hello, everyone.
Awesome to hear, man. We wanted to come on and bring you guys another episode similar to last week's, where we dive into one of these mindset topics that's really near and dear to our hearts and one that drives a lot of what we do. And it's also something that I think can easily plague the mind if allowed to do so. Yet it's a part of not just everyday life, but it's a very real part of everything we preach here at Impossible Performance if it is being applied correctly. And that is the concept of failure. There's a quote I love by Elon Musk, one of the greatest minds to ever live in the area of business. And he says, "Always keep failure as an option. If you're not failing, then you're not innovating." And I really love that quote, particularly because of the word innovating. Because innovating means that you're driving forward progress, but not just that you're growing and developing, but that you're truly creating, building new things that should not or could not have been able to exist before. Driving forward the development of whatever your pursuit is beyond its highest potential into whole new areas that nobody ever would have dreamed existed before. And so I think it applies particularly well to this concept of the impossible. Because if we're truly applying this be impossible mindset and mission correctly, then you're going to be regularly putting yourself in a position where the likelihood of failure is quite high.
Oh, yeah.
And we want to come to a place where that becomes okay. Now, there's a few caveats to this, because we want to make sure we understand what our definition of success and failure is. And we want to make sure that when we discuss failure, that when we discuss this idea of failure being okay and in fact a necessary part of this process, we understand that it's maybe failure in some of the less meaningful goals. The failure in the means to an end sometimes, rather than failure in your personal development and who you show up to be and who you strive to build every single day. So we're going to dive into all that, but I wanted to open up with that quote to give you guys an idea of what our mindset is when we think about failure, because it's something that we've both approached many times in our lives, something we faced massively along our journey, yet it's something we know we have to allow ourselves to be open to in order to continue fully driving forward, because our goal here is not just to win at everything we attempt. It's to truly innovate in the areas of the human mind and human potential. And so that's what we want to dive into a little bit tonight. So when you hear that quote, to keep failure as an option, because if you're not failing, you're not innovating, what's some of the first thoughts that pops into your mind?
For me, and with what I'm going through at the moment, I'm able to apply it pretty blanket wise over my experience these past 4.5, 5 months in what is more of that personal development side than the failure of achieving certain goals. Because in this time, goals have not been at the forefront of my of that development. The development has been, for me in these past 4-ish months, of going through, what should be and will be my last relapse is the side of emotional development, mental development, and mental health, mental clarity, and overall, emotional, the emotional drive to not react in such a negative fashion that it takes me back and forces me to regress in what I have found in my kind of emotional and mental and spiritual development over the past 2.5 to 3 years, with everything that's gone on, with everything that I've gathered in this. I don't necessarily want to I don't want to find myself again regressing with it. And so these past 4.5 months have really given me a time to realize that I am, first and foremost, is that I am human. There have been failures within my body. My body has not been able to recognize and properly deal with a mutation within my body, or within itself, I suppose. And to reconcile with this failure has been a very difficult kind of feat for me. In the beginning, it was. 2022, starting off with the cancer diagnosis and treatment itself, we were flying high, flying with colors. I was having the treatment done here, and we were lifting with with my PICC line in and everything, and I had very high spirits about it, and I was able to kind of deal with that failure at the beginning. And then with my first relapse and having to go up to Cleveland Clinic for the upgrade and treatment, upgrade in not a good manner, that led to me having to face the failure more head on a sort of deeper spiritual level. I really found myself capturing the essence of what that failure was that my body had committed, not by purpose, obviously, but it just happened, and the sort of scale and true nature of that failure, and it hit me pretty hard, and I did not deal with it correctly at first. I really did not. I fell into a very deep hole, and so, but I came out of it and got into remission that first time, quote unquote. And what I was able to do at first was sort of, I'd have to say, skate by emotionally. And that was not the easiest to come back from, I would say. After the first time hearing remission, I had went back immediately into life, back into the grind. And that was not the best for me mentally, because I had convinced myself that I had escaped death, and that was not the right manner of which to look at what had happened to me. But then starting Impossible Performance really, really helped me in that front to kind of to progress with it. And now I find myself third relapse in. I've had failures of dealing with this on that mental and emotional forefront. And it's not that I need to punish myself for it with such a grotesque circumstance that I'm in here. It has the potential to really, really drag you down in moments of we'll say, darker thoughts, the more emotional responses and reactions that you can have to certain occurrences, even just within treatment itself, because you have the side effects, you have all this stuff that can be going on just during treatment that's physical, let alone the mental side, and reacting to those physical occurrences and side effects and reactions. Your emotional reaction to those is something that you need to take very, very seriously, but understand that if you have a bad day, you have a bad day. You may fail, let's say, at holding yourself to that. In what I chase is a more stoic response to the occurrences, but I find myself understanding that progress, as Elon says, the progress can only be made when failure is, for my paraphrase and experience, is that when failure is just accepted as a part of the evolution of what you're trying to become, it makes the journey a lot more enjoyable, honestly. When you let go of that apprehension and anxiety towards that potentiality of failure, it makes the journey more enjoyable, and it just makes life a bit easier.
Yeah, because failure can be a good or a bad thing, and that is entirely dependent on your response to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think it ever feels good in the moment.
No,
but it can be something that can really grip your mind, and it can really develop a strong hold over you if you allow it to have that.
Precisely.
And it's something that I know can really plague a lot of people, and it's something we've slipped into in the past ourselves. But really, there's two main approaches we have to this concept of failure, and the first is that we have to make sure we have the right definition for ourselves of what is success and what is failure. Because, a great example is the powerlifting meet coming up, or you can talk about with your treatment too. You could call, the first two relapses as having been failures, quote unquote, in the sense that like the treatment didn't work. You weren't able to ultimately kill off the cancer and achieve that cure. You could call that a failure, yet the person you built and the spirit you carried and everything you achieved along that process would be anything but a failure. Mm-hmm. And so we've got to make sure we've always got the right definition of what is success. And it is along the lines of what we talked about with being a cancer survivor. Your success in battling cancer doesn't come from the fact that you achieve a cure. It comes from the fight that you wage in the process.
And the value that you place upon those successes, because they're not, a lot of people that I've met and that I've talked to online, especially, that are going through some similar situations with cancer, mm-hmm. they don't put enough value on those kind of micro successes, mm-hmm. and of course the dark complexity that is in my particular example here of being cancer. It can consume those micro successions very quickly, overshadow them immediately, and you have to place value on those little successes, because ultimately they lead to something very great. Like you said, is just embracing that development emotionally and mentally that you can garnish from those darker times.
Yeah, 100%. And I think this all starts most crucially with understanding what your mission is. What is your mission? What is your vision for this world? What is it you're trying to truly achieve? What is it you're trying to truly build? For me, I'm chasing a goal right now of a 500-pound squat in competition. And that's something that means a lot to me, and it's going to be one of my favorite achievements once I hit it. But at the end of the day, I could miss it the next 10 competitions and it would not affect me. It would not affect my direction. It would not affect my value for myself, my mission, or my vision, because at the end of the day, that's a goal that is merely just a reflection of what my true mission and vision for life is. Our goal is to come out here and be impossible, to build that version of ourselves that could not and should not otherwise have existed. Somebody who is capable of things we never dreamed ourselves to be capable of. So as long as I'm showing up every single day with the goal and the execution of building that person, that is where I find my success. To me, the numbers and the miles and everything else that is the more physical or visual manifestation of that's all just icing on the cake. It's a means to an end. It's just a direct reflection of this process. So that the numbers end up having no hold, no meaning. It's all about the process and that person you build in that. Because the numbers don't matter, the trophies don't matter, the records don't even matter at the end of the day. If you have developed this person, this impossible version of yourself, then you will eventually achieve those more physical, those more visual goals. And all it becomes is just waiting along that timeline. And so it's something you can take the mindset that if you've built that person, then the goal has already been achieved and you're just waiting for it to fully manifest itself. So that's a big piece of what I've always tried to focus on. And probably the biggest point in my life where this has come to fruition was in the marathon last year when I didn't complete the 26.2 miles. Mm-hmm. And while that was, that was certainly not I'm not even going to say that. I was going to say, well, that was not like a fun experience. I can't even say that because everything about that was a gratifying experience. If you guys have been following along, like what everything that we put into that, every challenge we faced along the way. And that like we had no business to even show up that day. And yet we came out and found a potential beyond anything we should have been capable of that day. Yeah, it wasn't 26.2 miles. It was 18 miles. But I was still able to walk away from that day with my head held high and true happiness in my heart, because I know that I came out to do exactly what I wanted to achieve that day. Not from a numbers perspective, but from a personal growth perspective, from a perspective of doing something truly impossible. And that's at the end of the day, everything that's in alignment with our mission and our vision here. So I consider it a massive success. Yeah, there was a failure in the specific numbers, the goals, the more tangible, less meaningful details. And that's okay, because that's where the innovation piece really comes through. I could have relegated myself to a goal of running a half marathon that year, something that I would have felt much more comfortable, much more realistic, much more reasonable of a goal. Mm-hmm. Something I could have come out and completed and called it a success, called it a victory. But had I done that, that would have actually been a failure in my ultimate mission and vision, because I wouldn't have been innovating in that sense. I wouldn't have been opening myself to a very, very realistic and maybe even more likely option of failure in order to drive myself to a place where I would never have gone otherwise. If I hadn't had 26.2 in my head, I would have so easily stopped at 13.1. Yet because that was in my head, that was the innovation I was striving toward, I was able to make it 18. And 18 is a hell of a lot farther than 13.1. So that's what we've got to keep central to our mind. There's the piece of making sure you really understand and spend time working through what is success to you. That's not an easy thing to just come up with off the top of your head. You know, if you've got a specific goal in numbers coming into a competition or a specific distance coming into a race, sit down and think, is it really this number that's going to give me that self-worth? Is that really what I'm chasing? Is this specific number? Or am I chasing something more powerful than that, more meaningful than that? Are you chasing strength? Are you chasing growth? Are you chasing a level of personal development? Or are you chasing that creation of someone who could not and should not have otherwise existed? That impossible version of yourself. Because I can tell you that those goals are going to carry you further and farther than anything else, than any number ever will. Numbers are fleeting. The second I hit that 500-pound squat, all of a sudden that number is going to be meaningless to me because then I'm going to be chasing 525 or whatever the next number ends up being. There's always another number. There's always heavier weight. There's always a further distance. And while it's, certainly good to have those goals, to use them as a tool, as a means of direct reflection of the growth you're making, they alone will not be the ultimate satisfaction of your personal mission.
Because you have to be, coming out of any of those tangible goals, you have to be okay with, what you've achieved in that journey to the goal itself.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you can't sit there and go, 500 pounds. What do I do with my life now?
Yeah.
Is there any reflection that I could sit here and go over during that time? Or am I just going to sit here and think about a heavier weight?
Mm-hmm.
It's really about how much value you put to the little successes that you made during that journey instead of the big goal of hitting that 500. Because you could walk up there and not hit the 500, and then all of a sudden you're like, you can find yourself in a limbo, which is certainly understandable, but at the same time, you still need to find the value within that journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up because that's the whole second side to all of this, the second point to all of this, in that I can walk up in April, go to that meet, put everything I have into it, whether I come out hitting the 500 or I come out missing the 500, nothing will change. Like nothing about what we're chasing, what we're doing, what we're working toward, the amount of effort and passion and sacrifice we put into this every day, nothing is going to change. Because whether I hit it or I miss it, I'm still living out our mission and our vision to the highest level. And at the end of the day, that is what matters to me. It's not about whether I complete the lift or not. It's about, am I putting myself in a position that's truly impossible, a position where I could truly, easily, and maybe even more likely fail than succeed, and put myself in a position where I have to have enough courage and vulnerability to allow myself to go to a place that I have no business going to, and to face that fear, to embrace it as we discussed last week, and to come out the other side better for it. And as long as I do that, which that can happen whether I hit the 500 or not, but as long as I show up and do that, then I will walk away with my head held high. And that is what allows me to have a perspective of failure just does not really have a hold on me, because we've been able to find something more, something greater, something deeper to chase and to live for. And that's this mission and this vision. It can be executed at the highest level, regardless of any circumstance, regardless of any success, regardless of any failure. All it takes is a decision and a commitment toward that which fuels your greatest passion in life. So what we need to do is to not define ourselves by our successes and our failures, because that happens so commonly, and it's what allows failure to have that grip over your mind, because we're all going to fail. Yep. It's all going to happen so much more in our life than we ever care to allow it to. And the response could be to that, well, I'm just going to only chase numbers, only chase goals that I know I can succeed so that I never have to experience failure. But if you do that, are you truly finding your highest potential? I can promise you, you won't be. You have to allow yourself to have that unruly belief in your own potential. You have to allow yourself to be open up to failure, to allow it to be an option. Not that you just lose all care for whether things are whether your goals happen or not, but rather that you develop a more meaningful goal for your life, a more central goal, a mission and a vision toward what you can achieve and what you can create and what you can build in this world and in this life. A mission and vision that no matter the circumstances, no matter the outcome, your inputs still remain the same. So that no matter what you face, you can always find victory in whatever the result ends up being. And I wanted to kind of delve into your thoughts a little bit about how is this mindset really, I guess, revealed itself, or what kind of internal battles have you had to face going into not just this relapse, but now this ultimate and final form of quote unquote treatment?
It's kind of like the diamond in the rough, the last standing flower in a field that's seen a wildfire. It's finding yourself accepting that a lot needs to be burnt off. A lot of your former self that struggles within these moments has to be put on the back burner. And not only put on the back burner to be out of your mind, but it needs to, like, you have to go further than that. You have to go farther in really putting it to the judge and the jury, and then you need to execute pretty, I want to say pretty darn quick, because I have found that I have found that within my experiences of knowing that mindset changes, you have to burn off the old. And the quicker that you do that, the more, I guess you could say, more convenient for you it is in the future, near and far. But the speed of which you do so is not necessarily required. It's just the fact that you do it, and that if you find that doing it quicker is better, you will. But that there is beauty and there is strength within you of the mindset that you're going after. It's there within you. You have to battle. You have to be ready for the battle, but you have to be willing to battle that side. And it's going to be very, very, very difficult. The harsher the circumstances, I would say, obviously correlates to the higher the temperature you're going to have to turn that up to in order to wipe out, honestly, I think is a good term for that. Wiping out your old self that is required for you to get to that new mindset. And within my relapses have the severity of treatment has gone up. I've had to, for each relapse, I've gone from something that was assumed being able to, or how can I say that? It was assumed that this would work. And then 6 months after I'm told that it worked, I find out that it didn't work. And then I go in and I find myself in a new position, procure another strong mindset, but obviously not the strongest of mindsets. And that's always another thing that's great about this evolution, is that you're never done working. You never settle with the one final mindset. You can continue to evolve, and that is something beautiful that I have found within all of these, with this journey in its entirety on the macro level. But for each relapse, it was just this slap in the face with something that I'm not in control of, to a degree. But that I find myself being able to react more and more strongly, but also I find it to be a bit poetic in with the control of my reactions to the situations that I don't volunteer for, due to the amount of relapses that I've had now and the amount of work that I've put into procuring, the ultimate mindset, I suppose, for me. It's been stressful, but ultimately it's the ultimate healing for the circumstances that I've been through. And in being able to work so hard but so diligently, because it is still you. You're not, you have to be careful with how much you attempt to burn off, because you can burn off some good. And that would be, and an example of that is just in the sense of knocking yourself down. There are many negative thoughts that you will go through, or that you have gone through if you've gone through something already, that really can tear you down and can tear down some of the good parts. You have to be cognizant of those. You have to be aware of those, and realize that they have potential and they have meaning. They're not 100% useless and scary and negative. You have to be willing to wrangle with those as well, and to, if you put the time into it, again, like I said, you have to work diligently. If you're willing to put the time into finding what's good from even the negative thoughts, break them down, apply what you can. That is where you allow yourself and you allow the potential of what could be to be. I've been able to find myself on the macro level feeling so much better because on those microcosms, within the microcosms of daily life, I've really, really, really worked hard and diligently to know what's good, to know what's bad, to know what can be applicable to the mindset that I'm going after. And really, I found out that it takes time. Mm-hmm. It takes time. It does. As much as I inferred to before that I have found the adjustments, the quicker you get them done, the better. But that's because I've come somewhat experienced to those controlled burns of the old you that needs to go. I've come to experience with it, but it still takes time. It takes time, and you have to be patient with yourself, and that's a big takeaway from it that I've had with this is over the years now. My patience has grown quite a lot for myself, and I realized that I didn't have as much patience for myself back a few years ago than what I should have. But again, that's something that you work on, and it can be a very beautiful thing to see who comes out after those tragedies. And I look for and this may sound strange to people, but I look forward to the Austin that will come out a month from now. Because a month from now, I would have gone through arguably the most difficult 3 weeks of my life. I will be fighting for my life. I will be going through a dosage of chemo that would kill me if I just went through the chemo itself. If I didn't have, if they weren't ready to do platelets, which I will definitely be getting. If they weren't ready to do blood transfusion, if I wasn't having the stem cell infusion, all of that is required. It's not just suggested. It's not recommended. This is not a recommended treatment of dealing with the chemo that I'm going through. It's required for me to live. The amount of chemo would kill me. And so the next 3.5 weeks, month, I will be fighting for my life. And it's not going to be fun. Not going to be pretty. Hopefully I don't lose my beard. That's honestly my biggest concern is after this month that I still have my beard. That's paramount. But I am so excited due to the past successes, due to the past progress and evolution of my mindset, and ultimately the value that I've placed on what I have found that could be if you applied yourself in those difficult moments. I am so excited to see, to hear, and to feel the Austin that will be in a month from now, 3 months from now, and then into the future. I am so excited.
Absolutely. Failure is a beautiful thing if we allow it to be. If we allow ourselves to recognize that it is a reflection that we are truly innovating in whatever our craft is. We are pushing beyond the bounds of what could be and what should be, and into an entirely new world of the impossible, of things that could not or should not be able to exist. It's an opportunity to learn, to grow, to develop, and to build something even greater. Because each time this failure comes, it gives us insight, deeper meaning and purpose into what our mission and our vision truly is. And when you allow your personal satisfaction, your personal growth to be attached to that deeper mission and that vision, then you can come out and find success in any outcome in life. So work to look inward, develop that personal mission and vision for yourself. And if you want to be a part of our mission and vision for this world, we warmly invite you to do so. Because we know what this mindset has done for us. And we know that it's something that can be applied by anyone to any situation to find a higher level of growth and meaning and purpose in your life. Because at Impossible Performance, we are striving to build a global culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth in constant pursuit of the impossible. Thank you guys for listening, and as always, be impossible.